Good afternoon to my fellow Ignited, our dear guardians, the organizers, and most importantly, our distinguished guest, Sir Eli himself. This is the Quest 2 Mini Talk submission of our group on mental health visibility. Now, I'd like to start this presentation by saying just because you can see it doesn't mean it's not there. You can see depression, anxiety, or other mental illnesses physically, but it doesn't mean they don't exist. Just because symptoms aren't physically there when looking at a person struggling does not mean they are not struggling internally. And it is my sincerest hope that people understand there's more to a person than what we can physically see. Through this quest, we intend to put to words what we don't typically acknowledge, that mental illnesses are invisible but real illnesses nevertheless. To meet our objective, we will talk about the nature of mental illnesses, how to effectively communicate them to other people, and the importance of explaining mental health in open and honest conversations. So, what exactly are invisible mental illnesses? Now, to define the term, we have to first define three important concepts: invisible illness, and mental health. Now, let's start with the first. An invisible illness is an umbrella term for any medical condition that isn't visible to others. These includes chronic physical conditions such as arthritis and diabetes and others, but also mental illnesses, which are conditions that harm mental health or, according to the World Health Organization, the state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Living with mental illness often leads to judgment and criticism because others believe you look fine on the outside and therefore must be making up your suffering. Unlike facing a condition that's observable, those with mental illnesses often face a lack of social awareness and additional stigma. As a result, these individuals often face more skepticism and are accused of being lazy or moody and in need of cheering up, going out more, calming down, or a host of other dismissive judgments. To complicate matters, like many chronic conditions, mental illnesses tend to ebb and flow in severity. Some days, weeks, and months could go really well, and during others, it's difficult to work, socialize, and function, which confuses those who can't see why one day is good and another a challenge. For people with mental illnesses, the problem is that when they share that they are suffering from a mental illness, people will often respond that they were fine yesterday, not realizing that their mental health can fluctuate. While this makes explaining a mental illness to others difficult, it's often necessary to gain needed accommodations at work or home, proper medical care, support, and understanding. It can often feel difficult to know when to disclose specific information about our personal lives, particularly experiences that may feel raw or painful to talk about, like living with mental illness. However, communicating our struggles with other people can help them understand and better address our needs. But this begs the question, how do you best explain mental illness to other people? Take it away, Aura.
So, how to explain a mental illness? On the most basic level, a shortcut to help others get rid away to compare illnesses is a visible physical ailment and the challenges those disabilities present. For most people with little personal mental health experience, the relation to a tangible physical ailment will help them make connection. Everyone understands why a person in a wheelchair can reach the top of the shelf and no one expect them to wait lang. Everyone understand why a person in a wheelchair can reach the top of the shelf and no one expect them to. But a mental illness, there are many things we can do and yet society always expect us to do them anyway. I can reach the top of the shelf, but people don't see it and they don't get it. Similar for those who don't understand that mental health issue also requires real medical treatment and often can't be addressed with simple lifestyle changes. The comparison to physical sickness or ailment can be helpful. You would not tell someone with the flu to fix it themselves. You would tell them to go to a doctor, take medication, and so on. It should be similar to mental illnesses. You should not assume people should fix these illnesses on their own. There are other comparisons can help people get it. For example, try a comparison to something equally invisible, but hard to dispute. You cannot see gravity, right? But we are all subject to it. Mental illnesses are just as real as gravity. So why it is important to explain mental illnesses as openly and as honestly as we can? Take the lead, Azzy.
Thank you, Aura. So, importance of honest and open conversations. This basic explanation of the effect of a mental health condition will help others to get a clue pretty fast, but may only be a conversation starter. For friends and family, or even in workplaces where we can make a bigger investment, it might be a wise and even necessary to explain mental illness on a more personal level. Where safe and comfortable, get candid with people in your life about your experiences, especially for those who don't have any first-hand knowledge in mental health, because hearing your story can be an eye-opening. Clue friends in on the full body experience of an eating disorder or the paralysis and unproductivity associated with anxiety disorder. Having a personal connection with your experience can also help others become more empathetic to your to your needs on good days and bad. Consider providing additional literature and reading materials for trusted people in your life on your conditions. They can get familiar with the symptoms and treatments process for mental illnesses while seeing it's definitely a legitimate condition that affects millions around the globe. Point them in the direction of more personal stories you love that helps illustrate your experience. This is especially helpful if sharing your own mental health journey feels too vulnerable. Explaining a personal mental illness on a deeper level can be a challenge. It is not always easy, and it takes time. It takes a certain amount of courage. Unlike many physical issues, it is not immediately obvious what we need or what we need anything. This process is terribly embarrassing as it forces us to constantly explain to the people that we are suffering, but help comes most often when we ask for it. So the podium is yours again, Josh.
Thank you for that, Azzy. Now, I'd like to end this presentation by posing and answering an important question. What is the future of mental illness? As we move toward reducing the stigma of invisible mental illnesses, these conversations will become easier and hopefully unnecessary one day in the future. Getting there starts with doing the hard work of educating those around us by sharing our own stories. By talking and sharing about our mental health, we can allow people to better understand what we're going through. I believe that by sharing our stories, we can help to overcome some of the stigma that exists in society by expressing what the reality of life is uh, for a mentally ill person. And through that, people will be able to see beyond the stereotype. Sharing will help other people to feel safe enough to speak out and seek help for themselves. All of us with mental illnesses and our allies need to band together to make these illnesses seen and be taken seriously. If all of us stand together, we make the invisible visible. That's all for our presentation. Thank you for listening and have a great day. Thank you.
Halika na, sumama ka, tara na.